Hey guys, Cody Barton here. Welcome back to my channel. And in this video, I'm going to be talking to you specifically about how to comp a property the right way every single time. And specifically, I'm going to be showing you how an appraiser, the person that actually decides whether a loan is going to be made on that property or not, is going to come up with the value for that property. So the reason that this is super important is whether you yourself are going to buy a property to fix and flip, to BRRRR, utilize the BRRRR strategy, or whether you're going to wholesale that property to another investor, it is crucial that you know your numbers so that whether it's you taking it down, you're not going to lose a bunch of money, or whether you're going to wholesale it to another investor, you don't leave any money on the table behind that you should be taking with you because you undersold the deal. Or you might be trying to oversell the deal and now you're not making any money. So the goal of this is to help you make more money, put more money in your pocket. It comes down to three different things that you're going to be looking at when you begin the process of comping. Number one, which is the ARV, which is the after repaired value. Meaning, after you buy the property, you go in, you fix it up, you make it pretty, nice, and new, that is the after repaired value. Number two, the maximum allowable offer. What the heck is that? Well, that is the offer that you're going to have to make on this property for you to buy it at a good enough deal to be able to wholesale that to another buyer, for you to be able to buy that property and fix and flip it, for you to be able to buy that property and do the BRRRR strategy on that. And the reason that that part is so important is you make your money in real estate in the buy, not when you sell, but in how you buy the deal. Number three is the comparative market analysis. Really, all that is taking the data, the properties that have sold that are comparable to the subject property, the property that you're looking at, and understanding what the market is doing. What are those properties selling for, so you can establish an accurate gauge around what your property should be able to sell for, or better yet, what an appraiser would appraise that property for. Let's go ahead and dive into what are the things that an appraiser is going to do when they're looking at that property and what adjustments they're going to make. Does it matter if you're looking at a single family home versus a condo? Does it matter if you're looking at a townhome versus a manufactured home? The great news is appraisers typically are going to be coming up with their analysis the same way as other appraisers do because they go to school for it, they get a license for it. And just so you guys know, in the description below, I have a cheat sheet for you that you can download and be able to utilize. And it's the same criteria that an appraiser is going to be using when they're adjusting for the property that you have as well. Say you have a property in one subdivision. What you want to be doing is comping within that same subdivision. If you're in Maple Grove's community, you want to be essentially just doing a radius search around Maple Groves. You don't want to be exiting that community and going across the street into other subdivisions because they're different builders oftentimes that use different materials sometimes to build their homes. So you want to stay within that same community, essentially wanting to compare apples to apples. Say you're like, Cody, I only have a couple recent sales in this neighborhood. What do I do? If you're looking back, starting off with the last 3 months of recent sales, then if there's nothing there, go back 6 months. If there's still nothing that has recently sold in the last 6 months, you can go all the way back up to 12 months and be able to get a better understanding of what has sold in that neighborhood, because it's always generally better to stay within the same neighborhood, same subdivision, than to go to different communities. When you're adjusting for square footage, if you have a property that's, for example, 1,200 square feet, you want to compare that to properties that are give or take within a couple hundred square feet. So if yours is 1,200 square feet, you should probably be looking at properties that are 1,000 square feet up to about 1,400-ish square feet. Not the end of the world if you go up to 1,450 to 1,500, just so that you can get something that's within similar square footage of what your property is. Once you've found properties that have sold within that timeline of that 3, 6, 9, or 12 months, you've now established the square footage is within range of what my property sold. You also want to make sure you're comparing the same type of property. If you're looking at a single family home, you only want to be comparing that to other single family homes. If you're looking at a condo, you only want to be comparing it to other condos in that same community. A townhome, same thing. If it's a manufactured home, same thing. It's going to be that way on every type of property. You don't want to be comparing different asset classes because they're built different, right? So I'm looking at a single family home, single story property. Do I compare that to 2 stories or just single stories? Well, you want to compare it to just single stories. 1 stories versus 1 stories. If it's a 2-story, compare it to other 2 stories. You'll notice what we're doing is we're narrowing that criteria down of what our property is versus what the most similar types of properties in the same neighborhood are selling for. Because again, we're trying to establish what the market would bear, what we would be able to get an appraiser to agree with us that this property could potentially sell for. And when you're looking at the property, also wanting to keep an eye on what year construction it was built. Typically, you want to be within 5 to 7 years of the similar property. So if my property was built in 1995, well, I probably want to be comparing that with other properties that were built in the 90s, maybe as old as 1990 and as new as maybe 2000. The build style is going to be similar. And if they're not, again, that's where you just have to keep an eye out. If you're looking at a property and it's built within 5 years and it's in the same neighborhood and you're like, these just look really different. You're looking at a rancher style property versus an Adobe style built property. Not really the same thing. So you, again, have to be paying attention. And part of this, when you're doing your comparables, is you want to be making sure you're making adjustments based off of what the property looks like too. So if you're looking at it and it's a 3-2, 1,200 square feet, you're like, this is exactly the same type of comp that I have here, but then the property across the street is it's some super crazy modern custom build home that happens to be the same size square footage, but it's not similar in any other way. You don't want to compare that because, again, we're comparing now an apple to an orange. And I want to get into what the heck do you do if you've went back 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, and you're like, I don't have any comparable sales in the neighborhood. Well, at that time, it's okay to jump into a radius search. You can go up to a mile out, but start at half a mile and under just to try to find properties that are close, but keeping all of the other criteria the same. Again, if you go across the street and all the homes were built in the 60s and your home's built in 2005, you don't want to use that community. You're able to expand where you're looking, and this is what appraisers do. I've read appraisers' reports thoroughly. When they can't find comparable sales in the neighborhood, they will go out a half a mile. If they still can't find anything, they go out up to a mile to find comparable sales so that they can create that data. There are some other adjustments that you want to be looking at as well, such as bedroom count, bathroom count, does it have a pool, no pool, garage, carport. Those aspects obviously are going to come into play as well. So what the heck do you adjust for on those? It depends. And it depends because part of comping is an art and a science. Comping a apple to another apple is part of the science of there is no way that you do not do that. You need to compare a house to a house. You cannot compare a manufactured home to a house, a manufactured home to a condo. You just can't do that. But when it comes to a bedroom or maybe a pool, there's different adjustments that sometimes can be made. But general criteria here is this. When you're looking on bedroom count, there's a general range that actually matters and a range that does not matter as much. Let's say, for example, we have a property that's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. That 2-bedroom, 2-bath, let's say it sells for $200,000. And you have a property that is a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom. Similar square footage, everything else is the same, but it has an extra bedroom. In an appraiser's eyes, in the bank's eyes, going from 2 bedrooms to 3 bedrooms is a significant increase in value and can lead to upwards of $20,000 to $25,000 or more in increased value that property would be given. But here's the thing, going from a 3-bedroom to a 4-bedroom, from what I've seen of comping for over 6 years, generally only adds maybe 5, maybe 7, upwards of max $10,000 in value. And you say, Cody, why is it that way? Well, here's the real reason. So as a 3-bedroom, it's more usable property. More families are going to be able to purchase that property. There's more usable space. There's extra bedrooms for offices, kids' rooms. It's just there's more of a market for a property that's a 3-bedroom than there is for a 2-bedroom. And the gap and the difference for a market of a 3-bedroom versus a 4-bedroom just isn't that significant. That is why that varies so much. Where going from a 2 to a 3-bedroom, there's such a jump in value versus a 3 to a 4. When you're looking at bathrooms, similar in the sense of going from a 1 bath to a 2 bath is a $10,000, $15,000 plus adjustment versus going from a 2 bath to a 3 bath, really not as much, maybe 5, maybe 10,000 in value. But it's really that increase from in bathrooms from 1 to 2 baths, and then in bedrooms from 2 to 3, that there's the biggest change in that. Then when we're looking at a pool, generally you're going to be giving $10,000 to $15,000 in value that a pool is going to give. And where do I come up with that? Well, I've read enough of appraisers' reports on the value that they give a pool, which is typically that $10,000 to $15,000 range. Obviously, if they have some super gangster cool pool that has all these crazy water features and it's just ridiculously upgraded, maybe give it 15 to 20, but generally they're going to give it 10 to 15. Again, that's where there's an art and a science here, where these are general rules of thumb. When it comes to a garage and a carport, if you're looking at that same 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,200 square foot house, one has a 1-car carport, the other one doesn't have a carport or any parking, generally you're going to give about $5,000 in value. If you're looking at carport versus garage, one has a 1-car carport, the other one has a 1-car garage, $5,000 to $7,000 in value. If the property has no garage, no carport, and you're comping it against one that has a 2-car garage, you can give that typically $10,000 in value to the property that has the garage. Now, obviously, some of this is going to vary based on the price of the property you're looking at as well. So like in Arizona, for example, our median price point at the filming of this video is in the low 400,000s. So if we're looking at a property that is, for example, over $500,000, that would be considered above the median. And a property that is above the median and it does not have a garage or carport, they get hit harder with these adjustments. So if you're looking at a property that is above the median, above 500,000, for example, and one does not have a carport or any parking at all versus one that does, that can adjust, $15,000, $20,000. So it can increase a little bit more when you're looking at a little bit higher end of properties as well. Whereas in the lower, under the median, it's not going to matter as much because the demand also teeters. The demand for the higher priced properties, there's less buyers that are in this pool. Whereas the pool of buyers for all the properties under the median price point, there's buyers everywhere. There's tons of buyers. Everybody wants that home. They're like, I could park in the driveway. I don't need a garage. I don't need a carport. It just typically doesn't matter as much. So it's just typically not given as much value in that lower price point. Now, when we're looking at something like, well, what do I do when my property has a freaking auto shop behind it and they're, going ham on cars every day and there's noise and, there's a construction site behind this property, or my property backs up to a green belt and the property that I'm trying to compare it to fronts a major road and there's 5 lanes of traffic that are going, whizzing by on that road. Obviously, those things play into account. What do you think is going to be more valuable? The property facing a main road with traffic in front of it, or the one quietly on a cul-de-sac that backs a green belt? Well, probably the one that people are going to more desire to be at. So when we're looking at this also depends on the price point that you're looking at as well. So if you're looking at under the median, so really in Arizona, under 400,000, if you're citing a commercial property, if it backs to you, or if it's in front of the property, if it's citing about $10,000, if it's backing something about $10,000, if it's literally in front, like I stand in my driveway and I'm looking at an auto repair shop or some other commercial building, typically $10,000 to $20,000 is going to have to be reduced off the value of that property because of that. If it's above the median price point, or in Arizona above, say, $500,000, this one is more critical because that can affect it up to 10%. So if the property is worth $500,000, you might be taking a $50K haircut because it's citing commercial, and that's a more luxury property for the market. If it's backing one of those, it could be up to 15%. And the worst in this price point, the worst you can be at is fronting. Over the median price point, fronting a main road, fronting, some facility that's a commercial building, you can be adjusting the value by upwards of 20%. Typically, I see it in 10 to 15%. It just really depends on the type of commercial business and like how disturbing that, business is. Like, do you have like a trash facility in the front of your house where they're, actively bringing in dumpsters and trash cans and making tons of noise every day? Like, that's probably going to be worse than just like a commercial medical building that is just a little bit quieter. So those things, obviously, because this is an art and a science, you have to kind of use some of your common sense there when you're making those adjustments. But it is important to know, because that great deal that you're buying and that you're thinking you're going to go fix and flip and make a 10% spread on, you think you're going to sell that property and make 50 grand, your entire spread could be destroyed because you forgot to account for the adjustment of being siding commercial property, fronting it, backing it. All of those things come into play. Now, obviously, there's some markets and some properties that have some unique features. So, for example, a basement or a guest house. Typically, what you're going to do is just add that additional square footage, but only give about 50% of the value. So, say if that extra square footage was going to give you an extra $50,000 in value, you typically only add about $25,000 in value, because it's either the detached property or if it's just a basement, just give it a little bit of extra value to the property. If you want to get access to the criteria and the description that I just went through in this video, make sure to go to the description below, download it. When you're making calls or you're trying to make offers, have that thing printed out, freaking staple it into your wall, tack it into your wall, whatever, so that you can have a reference sheet to make adjustments when you're getting ready to make offers on properties. And make sure to check out part 2, where I take this from theory and thought into practice and show you a real life BRRRR deal that my company purchased, how I looked at it when I was buying it, what adjustments that I was making when I was comping for that deal, and what ended up happening now that we got it to the appraisal, and how all of those pieces came together so that you can know how to do that on your first deal or your next BRRRR deal.